These TV partners are paying all this money for these to watch these people play, and those rivalries are no longer guaranteed. What is up, everybody? It is Jake with Master Football, back at it again. Happy Thursday. Thank you so much for being here. For those of you who haven't been here before, this is Jake with Master Football, everything pro football, college football, video game football, NFL draft, anything related to American football. Hit that red subscribe button. You'll not be disappointed. Also, the like button too. Okay, like, share, comment, subscribe, do all that stuff. I really appreciate it. Also, follow on Twitter. We're growing there too. Without further ado, let's get into the video. All right, guys, there were a couple of releases of schedules from the Big Ten and the SEC. And again, we hear those names a lot. We got the Big Two in conference realignment, the Big Two in college football kind of going at each other in multiple different ways. One adds Texas and Oklahoma. The next one adds USC and UCLA, and so on. We have the battle from there. Now, it's very important to understand, a lot of people, we get distracted with this is the reason why we're going to do conference realignment, or that, or we're going to add this market, or all that kind of stuff. There's a lot of things that go into it. There's academic requirements and everything like that. However, with these schedules, we're also going to see why the Big Ten did it better. With these schedules, we're going to see why conference realignment actually happened. It's because of the regular season games you can do. First thing I'm going to do is going to go over the Big Ten schedule. There's a lot of USC and UCLA conversations to have there. There's also a lot of Big Ten West opponents who are now going to have to play a lot of Big Ten East opponents in addition to USC and UCLA. For a time there, that got a little bit to the point to where the West was, we won't say bad, but we're going to say softer than the East. We're also going to talk about the SEC, the same situation there. Georgia is the class of college football, no doubt about it. However, the SEC East has not been the class of the SEC for a long time now. So we need to talk about those different situations there. In addition to, remember here, the Big Ten is going to be playing a 9-game conference season, whereas the SEC is going to be playing an 8. We're going to see why, and again, I'm going to show you here, the Big Ten's model is superior. However, we are seeing the fact that 8 games, maybe 9, we're going to run into some limitations in conference realignment because there's only so many different teams you can add, only so many different games you can make, and everything like that. It's very difficult to have 2 teams and sell them to a TV partner if they're not going to play each other once every 7 years. We're going to go in those schedules really quickly right now. So first thing I want to do is go over the Big Ten's model. So they have something called the Flex Protect Plus scheduling model, a ridiculous name there. Anyways, you have blue outlined, 2 play opponents that will be played both home and away. So home and away for 2024 and 2025, including a white protected opponents that will be played annually beyond the 2025 season. So we check a couple of these out right here. We see the fact that, Illinois is always going to play Northwestern. They're always going to play Purdue. They have Ohio State this year and next, I should say 2024 and 2025. You see the fact that Iowa, we always want Minnesota, we always want Nebraska, we always want Wisconsin. They want to keep those trifectas going. You come down here and check out USC and UCLA. We see USC is going to be playing UCLA, obviously, and then they're going to play Penn State for 2 straight years and Wisconsin for 2 straight years. And then in addition to that, UCLA is going to play Nebraska for 2 straight years and then Rutgers for 2 straight years. So, I mean, it gets crazy there, but you can see the fact that this is how the model is going to be going. Unfortunately, the SEC was only able to guarantee 1 game because they only have 8 conference games. So let's continue on with this Big Ten analysis because I really like what the schedule has done. First of all, there's definitely a couple winners and losers from the schedule situation. So it's a bit difficult to see here, but we're going to go through a couple of these. First of all, one of the definite winners here was Nebraska. Now, they still do have to visit Penn State. That's going to be a very tough one here. However, remember here, and I'm going to talk about this, UCLA, one of the only negative factors about them. USC was the bigger add for the Big Ten when they added USC and UCLA over there. UCLA reminds me a little bit of the Chargers. Chargers, obviously, it's not an off-campus stadium for the Chargers, but the UCLA has an off-campus stadium. When they don't really travel very well, they are always like, oh, it's hot. We don't want to go to games in September. I mean, when LSU was there, a lot of people went there, but when South Alabama was there for a home opener, they weren't. So it's one of those things where it depends on the team that plays there. Now, you look at UCLA's home games, they play Minnesota, who's a decently sized program. Nebraska, as much as people want to say Nebraska has been down, and they have been down, they travel very, very well. We also see Northwestern. We see Ohio State. Oh boy, that's going to be a home game for Ohio State. And then USC is crosstown game. That game is probably a little bit of a moot point there. So UCLA is an interesting one. Now, again, they do only have 4 away games, but those 5 home games, 2 of them are going to be seas of red, both Ohio State and Nebraska. We come over here. The definite winner from the schedule for 2024 specifically is Ohio State. So for Ohio State, they have home against Illinois, home against Iowa, home against Northwestern. Remember, all of those were former Big Ten West opponents. They have Rutgers and then Michigan at home. Again, Michigan's tough, and Iowa will be a hard opponent to play, but at the same time, they get them at home. Their away games are Michigan State, will be a tough game, Minnesota, a Big Ten West opponent, and then they have Penn State, a very, very tough game, and then UCLA. It is very, very real possibility that Ohio State in 2024, for their conference games, they're going to outnumber the other team's fans in 6 of their 9 games. It's very, very real possibility. So Ohio State is a big winner from this scheduling system here. We come over to USC. USC is an interesting one. So they have some away games here. They have Maryland, which is just outside of D.C., has a lot of USC fans there. We have Purdue, which is just outside of Indianapolis. I don't really know how that's going to go. Penn State's kind of in the middle of Pennsylvania. Northwestern's just outside of Chicago. I anticipate the Maryland and the Northwestern games are going to have a ton of red there. UCLA, obviously, it's going to be kind of a split game there. And then their home games are going to be Illinois, Iowa, Michigan. Michigan will travel well to the Coliseum. However, the Coliseum is an on-campus stadium, whereas the Rose Bowl is an off-campus stadium for UCLA. So USC is able to fill their stadium up a little bit better. It's really interesting to see this, man, because again, we talked about the guaranteed opponents. We talk about the scheduled opponents for 2024, 2025. This is what the Big Ten has. Let's go check out what the SEC did, because I think it's left much to be desired. So we come over here to ESPN.com and we have their scheduled release here. And again, this was just yesterday. So Georgia, Alabama, Texas A&M on divisionless 2024 SEC slate. So the way that this is going to work here is every SEC team will play conference newcomers Oklahoma or Texas in 2024. So they're getting it right out the bag. Somebody's going to, if you're in the SEC, you're playing Oklahoma or Texas the very first year in the Northern Conference. And it says, and the Longhorns will renew their contentious rivalry with Texas A&M for the first time since 2011. And again, it says we've featured several notable matchups, including Alabama visiting Georgia. That's interesting. Georgia at Texas and Oklahoma at LSU. And again, we right here, Greg Sankey, he hinted at his preference for a 9-game schedule, said the league will continue exploring scheduling options for 2025 and beyond. I am here to say right now that I anticipate in the future that the TV partners are going to strong arm the SEC to be like, hey, come on, give us an extra game. I know we know Nick Saban doesn't like non-conference games. He was the only ones who voted against it. Actually, as a matter of fact, Georgia voted for the 9-game conference schedule. Alabama voted against it. Nick Saban gets what Nick Saban wants, even if Georgia is the class of college football right now. But we see the fact that, there's a couple of these games that they're only able to keep one guaranteed game. So they said a long-term 8-game conference schedule would likely include only one permanent opponent, keeping alive annual rivalries like Alabama-Auburn, the Iron Bowl, Florida-Georgia, while diluting other meaningful rivalries such as Alabama-Tennessee. We remember last year's game. It was amazing. Auburn in Georgia, the Deep South's oldest rivalry, and Ole Miss and LSU. So those games are not, remember here, these TV partners are paying all of this money for these to watch these people play, and those rivalries are no longer guaranteed. I don't think how they can do that long term and compete with the Big Ten. Remember, the Big Ten is going to be paying somewhere from $80 to $100 million eventually down the road with their deal. It is what it is, man. You got to make sure you can kind of prioritize that kind of stuff. It says the Longhorns, very interesting here. The Longhorns will host Mississippi State, Florida. That'll be interesting to see what happens there. Georgia, Kentucky, and we'll have road trips to Texas A&M, Arkansas, and Vanderbilt. There's going to be, when they play Vanderbilt, there's going to be a sea of orange in the crowd there, burnt orange, excuse me. And then also the fact that Longhorns and Arkansas, so Texas and Arkansas are playing, that's a really interesting game there. The fact they play at Texas A&M too. The Sooners will host Alabama, so that will be just all red. Tennessee and South Carolina, and we'll have road trips to LSU, Auburn, Ole Miss, and Missouri. They are going to take over the stadium at Missouri. Well, maybe not. That's not fair. Okay, you Tiger fans get out there. I apologize for the slander. I know you guys do a pretty good job there. However, remember here, those guaranteed games are not those guaranteed secondary and tertiary rivalries. We're talking about Deep South's oldest rivalry. We're talking about Alabama, Tennessee, Ole Miss, LSU. Those rivalries are no longer guaranteed going forward. I think that the Big Ten did it right. And again, I want to make sure we set precedents here because a couple of you might say, oh, yeah, well, the SEC's all they're worried about is CFE payout. All they're worried about is CFE payout. That's all they really care about. Well, I'm here to set precedent here that is kind of a dumb perspective there. So even with the additions of Texas and Oklahoma to the SEC, the average payout for teams, so $450 million times 6 or divided by 16 is about $28 million. So they have $28 million average per team. Now remember, it depends because 63% goes directly to the team, 37% goes to the conference to be distributed evenly. So it's not a 1-to-1 ratio there. So it's more beneficial, trust me, for your team to make the playoff. You could argue maybe, oh, well, we're going to make the playoff. If we're going to be in the Big 12. They actually ran the numbers here, and they basically said it's kind of a wash for Oklahoma and Texas to go to the SEC versus being in the Big 12 because, first of all, the conference payout is just dwarfs whatever these are going to be. This is just the Big 10. The SEC is coming for this. Trust me, everybody other than the ACC who's locked in their deal to 2036, other than them, they're coming for this. The Big 10 is projected to evenly distribute $80 to $100 million per year for each of its 16 members. Very, very important to remember there. As much as the expanded CFP, conference expansion, this and that, the reason why we do all these things, it's for this, it's for that. The big reason and the big payer is the conference payout because of the conference games you can schedule. The Big 10 is doing it right because they're playing a 9-game conference schedule. The SEC is doing it wrong. They're losing out on a lot of guaranteed rivalries because of old thinking, something like that. Remember, if you have to prioritize for a money perspective, you prioritize for the regular season. You don't prioritize for the playoff. The Big 10 is doing it right. The SEC is doing it wrong, in my opinion. They're not bad, but they're doing it wrong compared to the Big 10. I've been railing against the SEC for the fact that, we're only going to play 8 conference games. Even when they get to 16 members. The problem with that is that when they go to their TV partners and they say, hey, by the way, we're adding in these 2 teams, and they're only going to play these teams every once in a while. For the very first year, they packed it in. So the very first year of the SEC schedule in 2024 with Texas and Oklahoma added, every team plays either Texas or Oklahoma at least once. Now, going forward, I think they did that for the first year. It's going to be much more difficult to do that because they have one less game compared to the Big 10. The Big 10 fully integrates USC, UCLA. They have 3 rivals they play every single year, and they have a couple of them are going to be alternate off and on. But for the most part, the Big 10 much more established in making sure their rivalries are played. Iowa plays 3 of their rivals every single year, guaranteed. Much better from a TV perspective. It's much easier to advertise that than only advertise through 8 games. All right, guys, that's it. Thank you so much for being here. Get in the comments right now. Which do you prefer? I'd love the 9-game conference schedule. I know that people say, what about the CFP? What about the CFP? First of all, CFP money is dwarfed by what Fox and CBS and NBC and ESPN are paying the SEC and the Big 10. So take that perspective there. Throw it away, okay? The regular season is the reason why conference realignment is happening so much. So, again, that's how my perspective. But, again, which rivalries are you most likely to miss? Which ones do you want to see more of? You guys let me know. Get in the comments right now. All right, guys, that's it. Thank you so much for being here. Please like, share, comment, subscribe, do all that stuff. I really appreciate it. Today is actually my birthday. But I'll see you guys later. I am out.